worked best for really the entire team when everybody ran. The other thing, which is sort of connected to that, but is more, even in some of the half-court sets, I want to see Caleb Love driving the basket because that's where he had his most success. I think that's one of the things that is, most frustrating when you look back on some of the earlier games this season. He was just way too passive when it came to trying to aggressively drive the lane. And you knew that the capability was there from the limited times that he did it. I want to see him continue to take those steps forward. You'd like to see guys like Leaky Black, Kerwin Walton carry over their shooting performance from this game. But you don't know if that's going to happen. This really feels like it's going to be another ugly game. And I think it's for both sides. Short turnaround for both teams after really, really tough games. So I think this, again, favors Carolina, but you're going to want to see some guys that maybe didn't play great against Duke step up in this one. I know that his statistics were pretty good. This feels to me like a game that Day'Ron Sharpe could just dominate. So I feel like that's, you're going to look for some of those other guys to sort of step up, help out, because, maybe Caleb Love doesn't have as good a game as he did against Duke. Maybe Leaky Black doesn't have as good of a game as he did against Duke. But I still feel like this is an extremely winnable game. If you were going to draw a game after Duke, this is probably one of the ones. I mean, why couldn't it have been Boston College?
Right.
But, I guess Miami is one of the other ones that you'll take.
Yeah, you mentioned Day'Ron Sharpe having the ability to impact the game in a big way. He had 12 and 16 in the first matchup. So
right.
You understand that most teams in this league don't have a guy that can handle him. Miami's one of those teams. We've already seen it once where they don't have a guy that can keep him off the backboard if he brings the energy that he is supposed to bring to the court. I think Carolina is going to win the game because it's at home, and I'm trying to keep myself in check as a fan from that win over Duke. I can only imagine where their confidence level is at, and when this team has confidence in themselves and they're playing confident, they've looked really, really good at times, and I think they're going to look really, really good tomorrow night and get their 8th win in 10 games.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Look, there's not anything really consistent about this Miami team. They have had one guy that has started every game for them this season, and that's Isaiah Wong. Nobody else has started every game for them. They have a lot of different things that have been rotated. There's not the consistency that we're seeing now from Carolina. Where earlier in the year, Carolina basically came in the same situation. We're rotating our lineups all the time. Carolina's now found what works for them. I think that's going to be in their favor in this game. I think the fact that Carolina can dominate inside. This Miami team averages 32.2 rebounds per game in ACC play. That is 10th in the ACC. Carolina should dominate this game on the glass. And I think they will. I think that's what allows them to pull away and win this game. And again, this is another one where, it's not going to feel big. This is not going to be one that you're going to turn back to and say, oh, Miami at home, big win on the resume. But it's just another stepping stone, like you said, in the continued growth of this team, and will then set the stage for what will be just a massive matchup against Virginia. One that, as we like to classify when we determine how big of games are, one that we will probably watch together in person, and we will stand the entire game for. That means big game, and that's the type of feeling that I think they're going to have in this one.
Speaking of standing, I have missed that big feeling game.
Dude, COVID, I'm going to tell you, man, COVID has really, really set that back. Like during football season, we almost never hung out to watch games. And it's just not the same. Like, for one, we were season ticket holders the prior year. So we were there at every home game, everything like that. You're locked in on one game the whole time. You don't have any social media, anything like that, because we put our phones away, and the internet connection in Keenan is terrible.
Needs to be upgraded, so whenever Bubba Cunningham sends out the flyer,
I can't even send out a tweet from my section.
I won't bet Wi-Fi, but I have missed.
Right, and it's carried over even a little into basketball season. Like the games that we watched were College of Charleston, first game of the year. I mean, again, you're hyped, but it's College of Charleston. Like, you're not standing, you're not yelling, you're not screaming the entire game. Iowa, I mean, I don't know. At that time, we were hanging out with your girlfriend. And so it's like, we can't be like, this game was the first time all year where we've really been like into it the whole game. I mean, we're getting in our selective Roy stances, yelling and screaming. It felt great. And I feel like, this is the best part about the back part of the schedule, the ACC tournament, the NCAA tournament, when you get into it, is that almost every game feels big.
Yeah.
And I feel like this team is much more prepared for that than I would have thought earlier in the year. And that's what should be really exciting. The amount of people that jumped off the thought of this team progressing and taking steps forward after Clemson was sickening.
Mm-hmm.
The people that just wanted to throw it. This team is still moving in the right direction. And, it's great to be back and feeling excited that every game they play in feels really important.
You mentioned the ACC tournament, and before we get out of here, we're going to touch on that. We didn't get to it last week because it was Duke week and all that, and I didn't want to put the focus
more important stuff
on the podcast of that.
That's right.
There's a lot of discussion around college basketball, whether teams are going to opt out of playing in their conference tournaments due to COVID, due to the fact of not wanting to get COVID and then not be able to participate in the NCAA tournament, and this, that, and the other. And so Roy Williams was asked last week at his ACC's Zoom media availability his thoughts on the ACC potentially canceling the tournament or teams just opting out of the tournament. And the head coach of the Tar Heels was quoted answering that question like this: "I have several feelings off the top of my head. Do you know what opting out means? It means you freaking quit. Whether it's a team or an individual, opting out means you quit, and that bothers me."
Terrible interpretation.
Well, I didn't want to try to go the full
friggin'.
Oh, because
you gotta get the
I might
G
not have said frickin'. I might have said the other word.
Oh man,
and then we'd have to restart and all that.
Oh no, you just profusely apologize like Roy does whenever.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Except this year, didn't care.
Yeah,
did not care. That was the turning point of the season. By the way,
I love when Roy drops that.
I said that on the podcast.
I love the ACC tournament. I love the history, the tradition,
the wheeling of the television in an elementary school.
Because even though we are in the 20s, we still got that in or at least I got that in my schools.
Best days of school ever. Literally, when the tournament came on at 12, instruction would stop for the day. That was it. You just watched the tournament the rest of the day.
With that being said, I, for one, don't believe they should have conference tournaments this year. And if I'm Carolina and you finish up the regular season and you're looking at your data and how you stack up and you know you're in the field, I wouldn't go play. And I know that goes against what Roy Williams believes, and I understand where he's coming from. But in this year, where you need the NCAA tournament more than you need the ACC tournament, I don't think conferences should play them. And I don't feel like they should be forced to play if they deem it unsafe.
So this was brought up on game day during before the Duke game. And Jay Billis said that you have an obligation to your conference. And, I mean, look, I understand that you're in your conference. With the TV deals and everything, it could hurt them, whatever. Look, man, it ain't going to hurt them that bad. The NCAA, if the NCAA folds, guess what doesn't matter? The conferences. You don't have a league to play in. That's it. The crowning a champion is gone. What are you going to go? Back to naming champions through polls? We're not going to do that. Now, here's the big thing. The NCAA is not going to fold. Let's not act like the NCAA is on the precipice of being out of money. They are not bankrupt. It's not that close. But I understand what you're saying, and I think that, my opinion would be a lot different on this if there was a period built in between your conference championship games and your NCAA tournament games. You need the NCAA tournament to start later. I don't care if you play in the conference championship games or not. They should still do this. You should have a 2-week period of no games after whatever conference tournaments play. Because there will be conferences that will play. Not every conference is going to opt out. The SEC will definitely not opt out. They want Kentucky in the tournament if possible. I mean, come on. Or am I lying? Come on. I don't think the ACC will do it either. If Duke can make a run and get in the NCAA tournament, they want it. So that's the thing. But I think they need that 2 weeks. You get to Indianapolis and you get there. Whoever has, because there will be teams that will have players that will test positive. Yep. You give them time to quarantine, get themselves ready, and you create a semi-bubble environment. That's what you need. If they don't do that, which it looks like they're not going to, then at this point, you've really got to gauge whether or not it's actually worth the risk of playing in the Big Ten tournament or the ACC tournament or, I said the Big Ten tournament first because Michigan was on my mind. This is a team that hasn't played in a few weeks. Yep. If you're them, you might just say, you know what? Why don't we not play the rest of the season? We're on the 1 line. What's the point? That's the problem, is it opens Pandora's box with that. But, that's the thing. There's no right answers when it comes to COVID-19. We've said that on both of our podcasts when we've discussed it since last March. There's whatever you do, there's going to be consequences from it. But if your ultimate goal is to win a national championship, then sitting out your conference tournament might not be the worst thing. For Carolina, I don't really know. I think I would have to form my opinion on where are they at when they get to that point in the season. Are they locked into the tournament? Are they probably, and that's the thing this year, because of how different everybody's schedules are and everything like that, because the games that will be canceled, all different sort of circumstances, to be locked in, you probably have to be 7-6 seed?
Well, so for me,
because outside of that, I don't really know. If I'm a 9 seed, I'm not confident that I am definitely in.
I don't put a lot of stock in terms of winning the ACC tournament.
I think an ACC regular season title is more important. I do believe that. Yes,
I always believe that for Carolina, and especially with this year and this team. If it's a normal year, how they perform in the ACC tournament really determines how far they'll go in the NCAA tournament. But so if I feel like they shouldn't go play, that's my stance. Because I don't think they need to go win it. I always think they need to lose in the ACC tournament before going to the NCAA tournament. But that's my thing, is that if I don't think it's not even worth that, then to me it's not worth it. Because if NCAA would have built in the delayed schedule, I would say, fine, go play the games. But when Jay Bill says, we have an obligation to your conference, the conference has an obligation to keep you and your players safe. Right. And how many conferences are failing their student athletes, whether it was in football, whether it was in basketball? So it is a situation. I'm not going
to say that. I don't think the conferences are the one failing, because this is an extremely difficult situation that nobody has had any prior preparation for. Most conferences that I've seen. Now, again, I don't follow other conferences in depth. The ACC seems to be doing as much as they can. But this is the problem that most people don't realize. Well, what's the difference between you playing in a conference tournament game and you playing in a regular season game? Regular season game, it is you and one other team showing up for a game. In the case of like the game that we just saw, Carolina Duke, the Tar Heels didn't arrive until an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes before game time. They're not there that long, and it's only you two in the building. When it comes to a conference tournament, you're going to have to host it likely in one central location. And that means that you're going to have multiple teams using the same locker room. And you could have a team